For the first time this year, the Ironman World Champs has been held outside of the USA. And for the first time, it's been held on a proper hilly route. I know, St. George was far from flat, but this route is something different. We're out in Nice, France, doing a little Ironman World Champs course recce and venue scouting. While we're here, we thought we'd ask the question that many athletes are going to be asking in the build-up to race day, and maybe even during the bike leg on race day itself. Is my triathlon bike really faster on this course, or would I be better with a road bike? It's time for Road Bike versus Tri Bike, Nice, France edition. All right, so we were going to start with the flat, but we couldn't do that because it was way too busy. So we've come further into the mountains to the biggest climb on the course. Now let's start with a hill climb comparison. Guess I'm as ready as I'm going to be. So 3, 2, 1, let's go. Oh, should have done a bit of a warm-up before I did that. Hard work. I think I might have cut the top of the hill off, but that's okay. Still a good test. Catch my breath. Back down and swap bikes. Right, swap bikes. Now it's time. Same hill, same power, hopefully, using the road bike. Ready? 3, oh, no car. 3, 2, 1, go. I think I chose test watts that are a bit too high for my current fitness. But held the same watts for both those runs. So I guess we'll have to go back and crunch those numbers. We'll get to those a bit later. There's a couple more tests we need to do. Twisty turny road, fairly flat undulating, and then we need to do a proper flat road and maybe a descent. Although a bit sketchy to time trial the descent. You catch my breath. And maybe fill you in about these bikes I'm riding. All right, so that's the hill test done. That was the steepest hill on the course. It was between Pont de Loup and Bramafan, 3 kilometers, roughly 270 meters of elevation gain, so around 9% average. And we'll get to the results of that test a little later on. But for now, let's look at the two bikes that we're comparing here today. It is the Canyon Speedmax CFR versus the Canyon Ultimate CFR with the same components as far as possible. For the wheels, we have the DT Swiss Arc 1100 62mm front and rear. Schwab Pro 1 tires, 25mm in the front, 28mm in the rear. For the components, Shimano Ultegra Di2 with 5236 in the front and 1130 in the rear. Aero bottle on the down tube. Both have a bottle mounted behind the saddle. Same Selitalia saddle. For the front hydration, we had to diverge a little bit because, of course, this doesn't have internal hydration. This one has an X-Lab Hydroblade fitted to between the aero bars, whereas the Tri-Bike, the Speedmax, of course, has an internal bladder where it can store with a straw coming out. Interestingly, though, that only holds 700 mils, whereas this Hydroblade holds 828 mils. So actually, the road bike might win out because it's got a bit more fuel carrying capacity, but only 128 mils. So close enough, pretty much the same fuel carrying capacity. It's worth pointing out that we're doing these tests with no fluid, no spares, and no fuel on board, which is actually quite important because while we've got the same bottles and same fluid carrying capacity on both bikes, the fuel and storage solutions on this will cost nothing aerodynamically because you can use this top box to put your fuel in, and there's an integrated spares storage box on the frame, whereas the road bike is going to require a bento box to be mounted on the frame and a saddlebag probably behind the saddle to carry those spares. Now, I have tried to get the setup as close as possible between both of them. I haven't completely managed. The road bike saddle is a little bit further back just because of the angles of the frame, and the drop is slightly higher. I couldn't get the drop quite the same, but the reach from the front nose of the saddle to the end of the extensions is exactly the same on both bikes. So I've got it as close as I possibly can. So how much do they weigh, you ask? The road bike weighs 8.14 kgs. And the tri bike weighs 9.65. Wow, that's like 1.5 kgs. It's quite a significant difference. It's not insignificant. In fact, even if you add the rider weight of, let's say I'm 80 kgs, that's about a 1.5% increase on the tri bike. So not insignificant, but is it enough to make a difference? I'm not sure. Okay, we're gonna get back to work now. Enough messing around with the bikes. Time for the twisty turny test. I've run you through the bikes now. I am back on the triathlon machine and we're going to do another test. This one a little bit more representative of the Nice course. It's a flat section. I say flat, it's slightly undulating, it's twisty and it's turny. And now if you're brave, you can aero bar it. The question is, will you aero bar it on race day? And if you won't, are you better off being on your road bike and maybe going down on those clip-ons because you're a bit more confident? Well, let's see which one's faster and then you can make up your own mind. Well, even I wasn't brave enough for a lot of those corners to go down on them aero bars. To be fair, the roads aren't closed today, so I've got to be a bit more careful than I would on race day. But even so, you pick up a bit of speed and you've got to be really brave if you want to go through those on your aero bars. Let's see if the road bike's any different. And we are back at the start, this time back on the road bike. So a little sketchy going down some of the downhill sections there, but fast and powerful the rest of the way on that time trial bike. This one, I think it's going to be a little bit less fast and powerful on the gradual uphills, hopefully less sketchy on the downhills. Only one way to find out. Let's go. Wow, we'll have to crunch those numbers too. I gotta say, it didn't feel as fast as the triathlon bike. And don't think it was that much slower, but when you sit up, which you do have to sit up occasionally on those corners, your hands are so much wider on this bike. And it makes you feel like you're in like a parachute position. And even if you try and tuck, your hands are really wide. And then you go down in the bars, you don't feel as aero. So, that's what the numbers say. Okay, so that's our first two tests done, and we are sitting down and having a bit of a break. and probably have some lunch. And in an effort to extend this break as much as possible before I have to hurt myself again, I'm going to explain why this decision is not as straightforward as it might originally appear. So we know that a triathlon bike is more aerodynamic than a road bike, and at above 15 kilometers an hour, aerodynamics is king. It is the most important thing. And let's be honest, pretty much everyone in this race is going to average over 15 kilometers an hour for the whole day. So why then is it even a discussion? Well, the answer is because comfort is very important in an Ironman. It is a long day on the saddle. For even the pros, it's 4.5 hours. For the back of the packers, it could be 7 hours out on that saddle. And then you need to be comfortable. And if you're going to drag a tri bike that you're not going to get any of the benefits from all the way around there and be less comfortable on it, it's probably not the right choice for you. Then, of course, you have to factor in your confidence on the bike. If you're less confident on the tri bike, because your weight is further over that front wheel, you're going to descend slower. You'll probably also sit up more often on twisty, turny roads like this, and you're going to lose a lot of those benefits of having a triathlon bike. And therefore, again, you may be leaning more towards the road bike. And then, of course, there's the training and adaptation. If you've done all your training on a road bike, if you come to somewhere like this in France where there's lots of hills, but you bring your road bike for that training camp, you're just not going to be as efficient and as effective on your triathlon bike. And of course, you won't be as efficient and effective on the run off the triathlon bike if you haven't trained specifically for that. Your hip angle is going to be slightly different on a road bike. You're going to have slightly tighter hip angle. You're going to sit slightly further back. Whereas on a tri bike, you're going to sit further forward. You're going to open those hips up a little bit. Potentially, it's going to make you run better, but only if you're used to that bike, if you're used to that setup. All this to say that while the science and the numbers that we're recording here today with our tests might tell you one thing, the reality is a little bit more confusing than that, and you need to factor in a lot of factors before you make your decision. All right, that's enough procrastinating. I'm going to grab a bite to eat, and then it's on to the final, the flat test. One more into the breach. Okay, it's time for the final test. And as you can see, got the aero lid on for this one because it's flat. It's the flattest part of the route, actually. We're going to do a little out and back, about 5 Ks, and test the difference between the two bikes. Hope I've still got the legs to hold some power. Let's do it. Woo! That was pretty hard work. Now we're going to crunch those numbers, see what our results are. First, I need a drink and a sit down. Okay, that's all our tests for today. And there is one more test we should really do, but I've got 3 kids at home to think about, and the roads aren't closed today. So I don't think we're going to do a downhill descending time trial. And as we have said, confidence is key. If you're comfortable and confident on your tri bike, you can descend just as fast as you could on a road bike, maybe even faster, even on twisty turny descents like these. But on a tri bike, your weight is further forward. There is more weight on the front wheel, so you're going to get less balanced cornering. And if you aren't confident, when the descents are as long as they are on this course, you can lose significant amounts of time. And I mean significant amounts of time, maybe even more than you would ever lose on the uphill riding a road bike. So it's worth considering whether you're comfortable and confident descending on your tri bike, or whether you might actually be better off bringing your road bike after all. I'm going to get down the hill back to our hotel to crunch those numbers for you, because that's what you've all been waiting for. I think I'll take this TT bike because I've descended down these hills many times on a TT bike and I absolutely love it. See you back there. Oh, and look, here's one of the locals. let's see what he thinks. Rudy!
Oh, hey!
One of the locals. Great to see you out here on the Nice course.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Yeah? Training hard?
Yeah.
Just spending some time out on the Nice course. What you can do when you're one of the locals. So, we're making a road bike versus TT bike video for the Nice course. Which is better, which is faster? I think I know which way you're going to lean. What are your thoughts on a road bike?
I'm in favor of the TT bike all the way.
Yeah? And is that just because it's more comfortable, you better ride it, or is it because you actually think for anyone it's faster?
I think for anyone it's faster. I mean, you need a minimum training on the TT bike, you know, can't hold the position, but I think this course really favors the TT because there's a lot of still fast sections, rolling sections, even some of the downhills that are not very technical. You'd be in the TT bars, so. And the uphills are pretty steady. So even in that case, when you're going pretty fast, you still have an aero advantage and not really losing on the weight.
Sure. I think our tests are probably going to show similar results, but there's other factors that come into other people's equations because not everyone is a pro who lives around Nice and thinks that these not technical courses that you can fly around the corners on a CC bike are not technical. Some people struggle with it. Anyway, you heard it from him. He'll definitely be on his TT bike. I'm sure you're waiting for all those other results. So let's run through them and explain our results. Let's start with the hill climb. Averaged 325 watts on the road bike, averaged 327 watts on the tri bike. I did 9 minutes 14 on the road bike and a significantly slower 9 minutes 52 on the tri bike. So 38 seconds difference in our test, which was only 3 kilometers. Then the flat twisty route, or the undulating twisty route, I suppose you should call it, that was a bit longer, 10 kilometers, but the difference wasn't much more. I did 14:36 on the road bike and 14:04 on the tri bike. So 32 seconds slow over a full 10 kilometers. So not that much difference. Interestingly though, on those results, I had a much lower cadence on the tri bike than I did on the road bike, despite having exactly the same gearing on those two bikes. Make of that what you will. And then we did the flat route. The flat route was 4.3 kilometers long, and I averaged 306 watts on the road bike and 306 watts on the tri bike. I'll pat myself on the back for that. Pretty well executed. The times, 6 minutes 30 for the tri bike and a full 16 seconds slower, 6 minutes 46 for the road bike. So 16 seconds slower over that, just 4.3 Ks on the flat. So the results are interesting. The tri bike lost a bit more than I expected it to on the climb. I mean, that was the steepest part of the route, but it lost a little bit more than I expected. Didn't feel slow, but it was. The gains on the twisty, undulating road were pretty much what I expected. In fact, I expected it to be a bit more on the tri bike. I felt better on the tri bike, but there wasn't a lot in it. The tri bike was faster though. And then on the flat section, well, no surprise there. The tri bike was faster, as you would expect. Not as much faster as you might have expected, only about 4 seconds per kilometer roughly, but faster and probably more comfortable too. On the descents, as I said, we didn't actually test that because I don't want to put my life on the line. I prefer the tri bike, and I think I'd probably be faster on the tri bike, but that really depends on which one you're more comfortable on. So I did a few back of the napkin calculations with this data. I essentially extrapolated it out over the length of the course for the amount of flat riding there is, around about 25 kilometers of this course, the amount of twisty, turny, undulating riding there is, which is around about nearly 100 kilometers of this route, the hill climb, which is around about 20 kilometers of the route, and then the descents, which are negated, didn't make any difference, but about 26 kilometers of this route. Obviously, not all the hills are as steep as the one we did. Not all the undulating road is going to be the same as what we did. Some of it will be more windy, etc. So it's very rough and ready back of the napkin calculations. However, I came up with a total with the gains made by the road bike on the climbs versus the losses on the flats and the twisty sections. And the tri bike was, unsurprisingly, faster. but only by 109 seconds if you extrapolate out to the whole route, which is not very significant. I mean, that's less than 2 minutes difference in it. So it's well within my margin of error for a real world test, actually. In fact, so it's basically no difference whatsoever. So the bombshell is the fastest bike for this course in Nice is, drum roll please, your bike. Yeah, the one that you ride, the one that you're comfortable with, the one that you love, the one that you ride every day, the one that you enjoy riding the most, the one that you are most confident riding round steep, twisty roads and uphills and downhills. That is the right bike for you. The whole triathlon world got pretty excited back in 2019 when a certain Gustav Eden came to this very location and raced the 70.3 World Champs on a road bike and won it. His reason at the time was given that he simply didn't have time to get used to a time trial bike. He would have ridden a time trial bike, but he had been doing all his training on a road bike, and so he chose that. And as we've pretty much shown here today, it was the right bike because it was his bike. It was the one he was used to, and it wasn't that much slower. He didn't sacrifice too much, and being comfortable and confident on that bike made him faster. I don't think you're going to see many pros at this race in Nice, many of the men's pros riding a road bike. I think they will all be on triathlon bikes. They essentially have plenty of time to get used to their tri bikes, so they'll all be on tri bikes, I imagine. As for the age groupers, well, I think we'll still see lots of tri bikes out here for the Ironman World Championships on the men's edition, but probably more road bikes than we'd see at a similar event if it were happening in Kona. Whichever way you're leaning, I don't think it makes that much difference. Back when I was racing, it was an easy decision. I spent most of every summer in the mountains of France and Switzerland riding the only bike I brought with me, which was a triathlon bike. So it was an easy decision. I was definitely more comfortable on that triathlon bike. But if you don't spend so much time on your tri bike and you're more comfortable on your road bike, then absolutely bring your road bike. I think we've given you a whole bunch of information here today, but our conclusion is not very conclusive. We've cleared that right up, clear as mud. Anyway, let us know which bike you are planning to bring to the Ironman World Champs in Nice or your next hilly race. We hope we have given you some information that helps you make that decision. Let us know in the comment section down below, and remember to like this video if you've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in Nice.